Hello bitches, welcome back to my channel. So lately I have been getting a lot of comments regarding what do you think about AI art? How do you feel about AI art taking over the art industry? So between last week and now, I've been doing my own research and have decided to finally make a video regarding what I think, but this is not a video to repeat information regarding any common concerns. This is more of a video of what I think artists should or can do to protect themselves based on the information I have gathered thus far. So I just want to let you know where I'm getting my information from, and the main ones that you yourselves can probably gain access to through YouTube are from these videos called The End of Art, an Argument Against Image AIs by Steven Zapata Art, AI Debate with Steven Zapata Art by Our Painted Lives, AI Town Hall hosted by Carla Ortiz and Concept Art Association, AI and Industry Town Hall featuring US Copyright Office, both by the Concept Art Association. Then there's this video called Why Be an Artist When There's AI by Draftsman, which features Proco. And in general, I'm just gaining information and the vibes of myself working in the US animation industry in Los Angeles and through the Animation Union, and from my very own partner who himself works in the AI industry, but not in the AI art industry, so don't come attacking me. Of course, again, do your own research as well and continue learning about these things as new news arises. The videos I found the most helpful were the two town halls hosted by the Concept Art Association, which I listed before, but I'll also list it in the link below, because they actually had conversations with the US Copyright Office, AI Ethics Institute, and former privacy and data protection attorneys, as well as artists currently working in the industry. So I feel like for me, as a person, artist that is actually working in animation right now, it is helpful for me to see conversations with people who are actually working in the respective industries I just listed before, having these types of conversations and what they might foresee in the future. In a perfect world, my personal preference is that I just wish AI art can just exist as its own separate thing and just not be merging or causing disruption with the availability of art careers out there. I think that artists are already undervalued enough, sadly, and bringing AI art will honestly probably contribute to further that to some degree. And however, I don't think that art careers will all be obsolete in the future, on the other hand. And what I think will more likely happen is, in my own partner's words, will be a slimming down of job positions available for artists. And in a way, we've already kind of been living in a world transitioning to these things. So I don't think it's stuff that's going to happen overnight, but hopefully it will be gradual enough that you can predict future moves that you might decide to make in your career. But again, just to reiterate, I just want to say that I myself personally don't prefer the world to work like this. I'm just saying what I think will end up happening regardless of what I feel. I just wanted to talk about some of the art careers or jobs that might more realistically lessen over time or may no longer exist, maybe in the close to far future. I really don't fucking know. So in my previous video, 15 art career options, there was a role I mentioned called a colorist. And that's a role where the artist is responsible for coloring, usually line art or pre-existing art that has already been set up by another artist. And you can color in either the flat coloring or also the shading and effects along with it. The reason why I feel like this job will cease to exist as much in the future because there are already automations within different art programs that are already doing coloring for you automatically, such as TV Paint, which is an animation program. They already have a coloring tool where you just mark parts of your animation that you want colored, and throughout the whole timeline they will then fill in the blanks and guess where you wanted this specific color to be colored throughout the rest of your animation. Clip Studio Paint also has a very similar tool where they're automatically generating the colors for your work, but I do think that they need more improvement on theirs because theirs is still like coloring in very blurry colors and it's not really clearly defined within the boundaries of your line art. And then in Storyboard Pro, which I frequently use as a storyboard artist, there's an auto matte feature that automatically fills in like your storyboards for you in terms of, you know, if you draw a character and you just want them to be blocked out in black, white, or gray, they will just automatically do that for you. I feel like when it comes to adding effects, highlights, and shading to your personal preference and liking, that's going to be a thing where maybe it might still be more appropriate to have an artist supervise or review, or even have you yourself do that for yourself. I don't think that it's bad to at least start as a colorist, but it's not a career path that I personally would stay in for the long term. Usually most people who are colorists have that as their side gig or part-time job. I just wouldn't have that be your main job for the rest of your life, because I don't know where that job is going to be in a few years from now. So the next job is being a concept artist slash visual development artist, which I don't think that these jobs will cease to exist in the future. I feel like I see a more collaborative thing happening with these artistic roles. Based on the types of images that I see these AI art generators producing thus far, most of the artwork that they're producing falls more in line with what I see concept artists and visual development artists doing, where they're these full-on paintings of either characters or full-on paintings of environments with a subject within them. However, there are still details within these things that need to be further refined, and yeah, there are cases where they are coming out perfect, but at the same time, I feel like there will still be a need for human intervention, for artists to be at least reviewing these things and looking through it before it can just randomly be accepted by the studio. I'll get to this later, but there's going to be a lot of legal concerns that will be involved if the pure art created by the AI generator is what is used. So I don't know if studios will fully accept things like that from the get-go, but it is a possibility where visual development artists or concept artists can use AI to start planting ideas or thumbnails that they can then base their work off of for inspiration purposes. Where I do see concept art or visual development jobs being minimized or lessened is when it comes to individuals or businesses who just need that quick idea or just that quick painting when they're like, I don't know, writing a script in their bed and they're just like, you know, I really wonder what this fantastical world I'm thinking of is going to look like. And of course, it's going to be so much easier for them to just use a generator to quickly get an idea for themselves. So I do think that when it comes to maybe getting commissions from people who are developing ideas for pitches or maybe developing ideas for their own personal projects, they're probably going to be less likely to reach out to an artist and commission them for work, because what usually happens is when there's a person who wants to pitch a project idea, they might have to spend their own money out of their own pocket to commission artists to produce these art examples for them so that they could show to an executive eventually what their idea looks like. I could see that being more realistically taken away from artists. While those types of roles are really great for maybe when you're in between jobs and you just need money temporarily, it's just one of those jobs where, again, I don't see artists really staying in for the long term anyway. So the next type of art job that I see AI art kind of taking away from is maybe customized products and commissions. So some artists produce customized work for people on apparel, accessories, or just general commissions. And similar to concept art and visual development, the only people that I really see using AI art are individuals who just quickly need this type of art for their home, or they just want their own custom t-shirt or their own custom shoes or their own custom mug. But again, I feel like if people have the ability to just create their own art for their own products, it might create more competition for artists though, because this person can now maybe produce and sell their own art online through their AI art. And that's a problem in the competition sphere that I will probably discuss later on in this video. So the next type of art job that I think would be somewhat affected are certain animation jobs, because animation covers so many things. There could be acting, action, there could be 2D, there could be 3D, there could be experimental, there could just be effects. There are a lot of things that fall under the term animation, but I think when it comes to experimental animation, I feel like I see more AI art producing that type of animation for the time being. And of course, some may argue that in the future they'll totally nail down like human acting. I'll tell you guys that at one point in my life, when I was still a student, I was also doing a side job where I was producing visuals for music artists that they will be showing as the background in their concert. And these are kind of roles that maybe I will see being taken away from certain animators or artists that like to express themselves through the form of video, because a lot of DJ sets or a lot of visuals that play in the backgrounds of music artists tend to be more like abstract. If a music artist is up and coming and they might not necessarily have the budget to fund an artist to create the entire visuals for their set, they could be more tempted to then create their own visuals through AI art, because it's not like you always need something totally intentional playing in the background of a concert. It's kind of just a supplementary visual thing to watch or look at while the main focus is the music. But I have seen music artists who are, of course, more well known, choosing visuals that have greater intention and alignment with the music that they create. So I feel like when we're talking about up and coming music artists, it'll be easier for them to rely on AI art because they might not have the funds for supporting an actual artist. From what I noticed from attending concerts from bigger music artists, they usually want their visuals to really align with what their music represents, and that is going to come with more specification and more specificity that maybe a human artist will once again need to either be in charge of, or even if AI art does play a big role in their visuals, they'll still need a human artist to review it. Also, under the animation umbrella, another role that I see maybe being more limited is being an in-between animator, but I feel like this is a role that has already started to slowly disappear anyway, because yes, there are still in-betweeners that exist, especially in animation companies based in Asia or overseas where 2D animation is still a big thing. There are still some 2D animation in-betweener jobs that even still exist in the United States. But the thing about them is that they have just lessened a lot over time compared to the past. Obviously, when the 2D animation Disney Renaissance films were coming out, those were when in-betweener roles were probably more apparent, but I feel like with CG coming into the picture, in-betweeners are not really as much of a thing, because spline exists in a lot of CG animation programs where they already help in between your key frames in animation, but those in-between poses still need to be reviewed by the animator when they spline their animation, because they still have to go back in and adjust things to make sure that the performance is realistic, believable. And in general, I also just don't feel like I hear anyone or many people saying, oh, I want to be a animation in-betweener as my main job. Like, I don't hear that from anyone, but if you do ever end up being a animation in-betweener, you're probably going to be one just because it will be your entry-level role or your transitional role to eventually doing full-on animation. So you might be wondering, well then fine, what about full-on animation where you have full-on acting and action? And I feel like those will take a long time for AI to fully execute, because I feel like when it comes to animating humans, especially in the films and movies that you see nowadays, there has to be a great and deep understanding of nuanced emotional character acting. Even as a storyboard artist to this day, when I apply for jobs, people are really looking for how you can portray certain emotions on a subtle level. Understanding nuanced emotional acting just takes a lot of psychological understanding as a human. Like, you have to dig into your own personal experience, your own personal traumas to remember what it was like to be in this character's shoes to produce this type of art. So yeah, maybe it might be possible for AI to eventually just understand what type of body language might represent certain nuanced acting poses. So then the last role that I can think of for the time being are illustrations or illustrators who illustrate for articles, books, etc. So I'm aware that we're at a state where AI can generate writing and stories, but putting that aside for now, I feel like authors and writers who are not artists and need art to fill in the pages of either their picture books, their novels, or articles, I could see it being a likeliness that they might consider AI art as an option. However, again, I see this happening more for self-publishers, smaller publishing companies, and not so much big publishers. So I feel like publishing companies that are larger will still have some sense of integrity and not just want random AI art generated stuff, because again, looking into the legal side of things, I'm pretty sure these larger studios and publishing companies don't want to face any potential lawsuits, which, you know, will end up being a lot of money as well. So for smaller publishers or self-publishers, I could see that being a possibility, and I could see that being a possibility for writers of articles that just quickly need that drawing to fill in that one space of their webpage or something. At the end of the day, I'm not saying that you should avoid being an illustrator or you should avoid being a concept artist or an animator. That is not what I'm trying to say. It is more of like avoiding the types of employers that you can have that might not value you as an artist as much, and you might think like, well, wouldn't larger studios want to incorporate AI art to cut costs eventually in the long term? But the reason why I feel like it's just still going to be more complicated than that is because whenever you're working at a larger studio or company, there's usually a legal team that's going to review everything that this studio is eventually going to be putting out, that will review every single thing to make sure that this studio will avoid any potential lawsuits in the future. And the reason why I know this is because, first of all, I've worked in various large animation studios at this point, with one of them being a very well-known animation studio. Basically, when we were creating a short film, by the end of it, our short film had to go through so much revision or reviews by the legal team. They have to like watch your video or movie, and they have to look at every single thing in this and make sure that this is not infringing copyrights in any way. Some people claim that AI art doesn't 100% replicate a pre-existing image out there, but based on what I've heard from, again, those town halls, from those videos that I listed earlier, is that there have still been proven instances where AI art has copied enough or a good majority of a pre-existing art to still constitute as copyright infringement. So even if you think AI art can 100% create this totally new thing out of nowhere, there are still chances that it might produce something that is similar enough to this pre-existing thing that it could become a legal issue in the future. And in a way, that still could be producing much more work than if you just hired an artist who understood the original intention to begin with. So moving on to the final part of the video, you might be wondering, okay, well, if AI art is gonna do all of this shit, what should I do then? This is just what I would keep in mind for myself. So one of the first issues that people have with AI art is you don't have an option to opt out of it, and that, you know, you don't know if your art is already being used by one of these generators out there. All I can say is just never submit your art into any of these AI art generators. Don't mention your name, don't mention your username if you don't want your work to be a part of this. I do hope that in the future there is going to be more regulation involved where artists can opt in or opt out whether or not if they want to be a part of AI art generator tools. And yeah, some people might argue that, hey, AI art generators are pretty much just like people using Google to find your art and then using it for inspiration for their art. Like, yes, that is true, but I just feel like with AI art generators, there's just a level of unfairness awareness because you're able to pull all of these things from like billions of images that exist, while you as a single artist, you only have the capacity to look at so many images and decide from there what you want to create with your own art. Then next is copyright infringement. So that is when I will say you should watermark your work. You should copyright any of the projects that you have, because it might not seem like a big deal just to leave your name on something. But I feel like once you establish your name as an artist, if there is a situation that occurs in the future where some AI art generator does use your art and somebody uses it to sell for profit for their own business, you can still have proof of your pre-established work, and you have your audience that can help defend you during situations like that. Basically, what I'm saying is you just want to have enough proof if a situation like this happens that you are indeed the original artist behind this. I feel like the benefits of things like the animation union is that something like this was the result of many artists making it known that we have rights that should be protected. So I feel like for AI art to fully bleed into animation industries, it's definitely going to have to go through the union before it gets into any unionized animation studios. And again, I do think that it would be healthy for different industries to come together and have more of these conversations, such as people who are already working in AI, people who are working in art industries, people working at copyright offices, people working at privacy and data protection offices. Like, I feel like all of these things, if we just have people from these different industries come together and have a conversation, better things can come out of this, hopefully, assuming that everybody is well-intentioned. But the fact that there are things like an AI ethics institute already established, I feel like, I'm glad to just know that there are humane people who are working within AI who do genuinely want to protect artists as well. I feel like when it comes to the concerns about being replaceable, I feel like one of the things you can do to lessen that from happening right now is to, of course, build a name for yourself as an artist, keep yourself competitive within your industry, always be refining your skills, always be sharpening your foundational understanding, and honestly, if you can, build a social media platform for yourself so you can remain discoverable by other people. So then the next concern or problem people might have is then competing with AI art. I think that if anything, that's more of a reason to stay true to your personal identity and humanity. Because I feel like AI art will compete with people's skill level, but it will be hard to compete with your humanity. You can argue that AI art is getting closer to pretty much replicating another artist's entire existence. But again, try to delve more into your personal stories, your experiences, your background, and people that you personally know in your life. I know it sounds cheesy, but I'm a believer that people will naturally gravitate towards things that they relate to on a deep level. So sticking to jobs where you rely a bit more on storytelling from human experiences will be harder for the AI art industry to control. And if anything, again, I feel like this is more of an incentive to build a brand for yourself in some way. And just because I say brand, it does not mean you all need to start your own Etsy shops right now. It's just building who you are, building your identity as an artist even stronger online. And going to conventions and stuff, you might notice how people will always want autographs and these quick doodles from the artists that they love. But even though that doodle is just not even your best drawing ever, people out there are going to still value that so much more than this random beautiful painting that some random robot created. They will like literally hang this random crappy doodle that you made because they followed you for who you are and the impact that you made on their life. So then the last major concern that I feel like this is creating within the art community is creating a lot of overwhelming fear and anxiety, because I feel like a lot of people naturally catastrophize bad news when they are told of it. And yes, I do think that artists should worry to some degree, just so that they can do what they can do now, just so that they can take action on things to protect themselves for the near future. But I also do think that there is a point in time where fear and anxiety can just become not productive, and it can prevent you from taking action to doing things in the right direction. So my suggestion for that is to just keep yourself informed, stay informed. There are always videos on YouTube that will come out and make you worry, and I think it's good to differentiate videos that are purely just based on someone's opinion. But there are also videos out there like the town halls I discussed earlier, where you have actual people from various industries actually talking about what is going down on their end of their jobs, and I feel like that's a little bit of a more realistic, grounded approach that can ease some of that worry and fear. And with that, I will just say, please support artists that you really enjoy the work of. If there's an artist out there that created work that allowed you to be the artist that you are today, or they created something that just really creates this feeling of inspiration or happiness within you, I feel like the least thing you could do is to just like their work, comment on their work, engage with their work, purchase something from them if you can. So one of the things that keep my mind at ease when it comes to this whole situation is just knowing that at the end of the day, AI art at the moment cannot control human emotions or how humans will emotionally respond to things, because I feel like humans usually enjoy things that they have an emotional connection with, and there's a real experience behind the media that they consumed. Because when you watch films that make you cry, you probably cry because you relate to this character that is experiencing something that is making you feel seen and heard. And stories usually need that authentic experience to really make somebody react in that emotional way. And yeah, I heard about AI art creating graphic novels and stories now, but my question is, will people even want to read stories coming from a robot? Like, sure, there will be that initial shock and interest factor that it's like, oh, this is a story written by a robot. That would be interesting to read. Like when you read memoirs of people who have gone through these different struggles in life, I just feel like reading an inauthentic experience that never happened is a little bit like not as interesting as something that you know actually did happen to somebody, and you really want to know how they got through that one thing. And I can already see arguments coming along where people are like, what if an AI wrote a memoir about their woes and struggles of being a robot, and they can never deal with human emotions, and that's just their internal struggle? Like, I feel like, at this point, we just are dealing with things that are out of our control. And again, I want to focus this video on things that we can control right now. And creating stories based off of your own life and personal experiences are just one of the great ways that you can create that bond with you and your audience. So then one of the last questions that I see people asking me is there any point in pursuing art anymore? I feel like if you just wanted to get into art just for the money and the job as your only reason, you were already getting into it for the wrong reasons from the get-go. I feel like even in the future, if AI art does play a bigger role in jobs, I feel like there are still going to be people who genuinely still enjoy creating art for themselves or personal expression. I feel like the itch to create art doesn't just die or disappear just because AI art is around. If there were people back in the prehistoric ages already drawing on caves and doing cave scribbles, and the fact that throughout all this time there are still people to this day fucking drawing, I would like to think that being an artist has so far been one of the longer standing roles that has not disappeared. Anyway, those are really all of my thoughts right now as an artist working in the industry and using the information that I have collected from other conversations that happened in other art industries, and just being in a relationship with someone who is in the AI field but is not an AI art person. So again, don't attack me, but it's impossible to cover everything in one video. So hopefully this is just the beginning of a conversation that will continue later on, that other artists and people can continue to stay aware of, so that artists' rights are more well known and amplified. Because I personally feel like for the future, any industry is going to be based off of where people are going to be wanting to put their money. And if that is the case, I feel like this is a moment for anybody who does have an appreciation for art to right now go support one of the artists that you really like and enjoy the work of. Show them that you care. And I hope that if you watch this video, at least one of the major things that you could get out of it is to learn to hold onto your own individuality and humanity a bit more, because I feel like that's what's going to be making you stand out as an artist, not just from AI artists, but just as a human being in general. So yeah. Anyway, this video topic has been really complicated, so I apologize if a lot of the things I say are all over the place, but that's just where I'm at now. I am still learning. My thoughts are not complete or concluded. This is just a state of where it's at for the time being. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. So peace out and stay host ambitious.